23 years ago, this country manufactured consent for what you're watching happen right now in Gaza. Propaganda has always been used to shape public opinion, especially when it comes to war and genocide and perpetuating any violence. After 9/11, the US government and media didn't just report the news, they created a narrative, a story that turned Arabs and Muslims who, for the most part, were fairly assimilated into and unbothered in American society into threats. And the lengths that they went to make the public believe this were outrageous. Things like a passport of a hijacker supposedly surviving a plane crash in New York when everything else was reduced to rubble. It wasn't even questioned because it fit the narrative that they were selling. People were traumatized and needed something, someone to hate. So they chose us. And the war on terror was launched and supposedly has since been ongoing. And that hatred led to American enthusiasm for the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, bringing us to being not just force-fed, but willfully eating up even more propaganda. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was everywhere in the media, repeated over and over and over again until people accepted this as fact. But there was no proof. There never was, and there never will be. But it was enough to justify, in the American mind, a war that killed millions of people. And they convinced you that it was a necessary intervention. For the safety of America, we needed to invade those countries and kill those people. And in the midst of getting you to hate Iraqis and Afghans, they threw in a seemingly random but entirely calculated story about Palestinians. On 9/11, mainstream media aired footage that was supposedly showing Palestinians celebrating the 9/11 attack. It was on major news networks, and just like everything else, people ate it up. Something they have yet to admit today was disinformation, because remember, media is an arm of systemic oppression. That footage was part of a massive disinformation campaign and has been widely criticized for not only lacking context, but for possibly being pre-recorded footage and aired with the intention of the public receiving it as live footage on 9/11. It's been circulating for decades, and I'll read this passage from The Guardian that discusses years after about a far-right hate factory that is still active on Facebook, where it says, specifically in reference to the video that is continuing to be circulated of Palestinians, that it was, quote, driven by a single Israel-based administrator. The network previously revealed by The Guardian operated by churning out thousands of coordinated fake news posts to more than 1 million followers across the globe each week, funneling audiences to a cluster of 10 ad-heavy websites and milking the traffic for profit. If they admitted their deceit, it wouldn't even matter today because the damage has already been done. Palestinians, already dehumanized in the public eye, became more disliked, and we were made to seem like we were complicit in an attack that we had nothing to do with. We were surveilled, my family personally experiencing this, and we became questionable and untrustworthy to those around us. And this fake story would become the connector of garnering American sympathy for Israel on October 7th, with rhetoric coming out immediately after October 7th to the tune of something like, remember when they celebrated your worst day? After October 7th, we noticed the same propaganda strategies being used again. The claims of Palestinian savagery, the immediate and since proven false claims of systemic rape and beheaded babies, claims of Palestinian fighters armed with only rifles somehow destroying an entire kibbutz into rubble. And then the media began showcasing absurd stories, like Mein Kampf being found on children's bookshelves in Gaza after their homes were bombed, where everything was reduced to dust, yet somehow this one book came out of the rubble crisp and completely untouched. And some more supposed weapons and tunnels of mass destruction for you to fear that they need to invade and kill to find. CNN aired an apparent terror list in an effort to prove Palestinians are master planners of terrorist attacks on international broadcast, only to never walk back on the fact that what they actually aired was simply a hospital calendar with the days of the week written in Arabic. They want us to believe these narratives because if Americans see Palestinians as dangerous or subhuman, it makes the violence easier to digest. It makes you less bothered that the money you pay the government in taxes is going to murdering brown children in Palestine instead of, I don't know, improving your American child's education system or fixing the potholes in your roads or having things like affordable housing and access to healthcare. You don't mind watching your taxes violently at work because 10/7 was their 9/11, and so we have to kill them for you, for your safety. Remember? And of course, 9/11 wasn't the initial catalyst for the dehumanization of the Arab and Muslim world, but it was certainly the kerosene on a slow burning fire. During the first Gulf War, the American media told us that Iraqi soldiers were ripping babies out of incubators. That story was, of course, proven to be completely false, but it didn't matter. Israelis have blown Palestinian babies' heads off. They've killed fetuses in their mothers' wombs, emptied their sniper chambers into the skulls of toddlers, and have forcefully removed medical staff from hospitals, leaving premature newborns to rot in incubators. This all happened. There is video evidence of it, tons of it. Where's American coverage? Where's that outrage? It has been at least 23 years in my lifetime where this country has demanded that someone like me feel guilty on a day like today for something that I had nothing to do with. It's been 23 years of this country playing victim on the world stage as it slaughters my people in my homeland and so many others across the globe while pointing its fingers at everyone else, screaming terrorist. Everything you're watching happen to the Arab world today is because of consent that was manufactured on this day 23 years ago.